Growing up in the Southwest with a white father and a mixed-race mother with my tan skin and dark hair and dark eyes, I was usually assumed to be Latina, or more specifically Mexican. Which is kind of funny since I was living in the most heavily populated Native American state in the country, Oklahoma. Or I would get the obligatory question that every mixed-race person gets, so what are you? So, what is multiracial? It is defined as individuals who are biologically or culturally from two or more races, ethnicities, or cultures. Also, individuals with dual or multiple heritages may have dual minority, Black and Latino, or majority minority, white and ethnic combination. To gain more of an understanding, I sat down and talked with Blaine Harding, who is the Director of Multicultural Affairs at the University of Kansas.
I think there should be some basic ground rules in any type of diversity or multicultural training. I think the very first ground rule should be that you treat the individual within a cultural context. You don't treat somebody as an ethnic being. You treat them as an individual person. So I wouldn't identify somebody as a Hispanic student. I would identify them in terms of their first name. Because I don't even know, just because they look like a Hispanic student, that doesn't mean that they celebrate any observances, that they're part of the culture, that the culture means anything to them. So you treat them as an individual, and then if their ethnic or racial identity is part of their overall identity, then you can move into the cultural aspects. But I know Black students that don't identify as being Black. I know Latino students that don't identify as being Latino, they identify as being Americans. They've assimilated, and that's perfectly acceptable because that's their choice, but you've got to treat them as an individual before you go to that cultural perspective. I think that's really important, that you have to understand that. And what's really interesting about multiracial people is people don't understand that it's one of the fastest growing groups in the United States. You know, we always want to concentrate on Latinos and Hispanics, but the group that's growing almost as fast and in some areas of the country faster are biracial people, yet we never talk about their identity. And it's always as if I'm biracial, I'm Black and Italian. My grandmother's name is Santina Angelina Vigliotti. And people will always ask, well, which aspect of your heritage, which aspect of your identity do you value more, or what aspect of identity plays out in you more, or what aspect of identity do you really identify with even closer? And my answer is both of them. And people don't understand that because they think as a biracial individual, you've got to make a choice. Am I Black or am I white? And if this was the 60s, I would probably agree with them. Because I grew up in the 60s and people would say you can't be both, you're either Black or you're white. In today's day and age, you can be all of that. And biracial people today go in and out of their identities all the time. It's got to be a choice of the individual. It can't be a choice of society to label people. It can't be a choice of even people you come into contact with to label you as well. You've got to be able to make that conscious decision, and then other people have to accept that decision because it's your choice, it's not their choice. Some people reject part of their identities, and that's fine with me because it's their choice. And they reject it totally and they don't want it to be part of it, and that's fine. That's their choice, and I've got to respect their choice.
My friends have always been a pretty diverse group with their own different backgrounds, and I've been fortunate to have known several who are mixed race too, like Jimmy and Paige Fickbaum. Jimmy and Paige met in the small town of Barnes, Kansas, where they grew up. In the last 6 years they've been together, they've gotten married and have an almost 2-year-old daughter named Charlotte. Paige is working as a substitute teacher while she's obtaining her teaching degree at UMKC. Jimmy works at an engineering firm and is a private contractor and has his own welding shop on Etsy. Both are devoted parents, compassionate and outgoing people, and both happen to be biracial.
I am half Black and half white. My mom is white and my dad is Black.
Yes, my mom is Asian, full-on South Korean, and my dad is white. And he's like full-on white. Why am I wrong first? Okay, me being mixed race. I liked it. Definitely. I mean, in a small town, you face a lot of adversity. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were like in the whole town. I was the only Korean person there. I think that in all of my years of like grade school, junior high, high school, I met one other Korean person that was even two other people that were like half Korean that I met, and I was like, oh my God, you know, you're half Korean too. Being Korean, it's like there's nobody from redneck country Kansas that is like Korean, you know, that like where I grew up. So that was kind of like out there a little bit.
Did anybody ever make fun of you?
Oh yeah, I got it all the time. But I mean, if you start getting it from like first grade, I think you start building up a thick skin. Mm-hmm. You know, they're always like, you're Asian. I was always like the tiniest kid in the class, but my grades were kind of good, so like I set myself up as a stereotype, on like right there, so that like didn't go good in my favor. And then like the one thing I picked to be good at was music, so it's like that's not very good either, and then like I always got made fun of, but that's just the way it is. Kids are mean,
My experience growing up mixed race is a little different because I lived in a small town, but I've also lived in Hawaii and in Georgia. So my experience living in a small town, it kind of changed as I got older. I remember one of my classmates walking up to me, and we were in second grade, and she said, you're not like us. You're different than us. You're not like us. And it wasn't even really mean or anything like that. I think it was just an observation, and that's the first time that anyone had said anything like that to me. But I already knew that. It made it apparent, like, oh yeah, I am. I moved to Georgia, and one of my first friends that I made was black. Maybe my whole experience would have been different if my first friend I made would have been white. But since I made this friend that was black, therein all of my other friends were also black. And I mean, there was white kids at my school too, my middle school that I went to. But I felt more like I had to be more black because I hung out with a black kid. So if I said something that a white person would say, that, oh, you're acting white, stop acting so white. Why do you talk so white? And then when I moved back to Kansas, small town, when I was a sophomore, I still kind of have this like, okay, well, I'm black, and then everyone else is white, and I'm different. So I felt like I was like that token black kid, and I had to act more black. So I was always referred to, like Black Paige, because my best friend is white and her name is Paige. And
were you okay with that?
I was okay.
Yeah,
I was okay with it.
Paige.
It just kind of grew on me, and it didn't really offend me. But sometimes I felt like I was playing this part, almost like trying to be more black than I actually really felt inside. And it wasn't until I kind of grew a little bit in my maturity that I was like, I'm black and white, however I act, I don't know, maybe I act more white, maybe sometimes I act more black. I don't really see it as acting one way or the other, it's just who I am. I mean, even though I've grown up and I've kind of, see myself as just who I am, but there are definitely times and situations where I do relate more to being white or more to being black. It's just, I can't really put a finger on it, like what makes me relate to a certain side, but I definitely feel both sometimes, yeah. What about you?
I'd say there's a lot of times when I feel a lot more Asian. I feel like a lot more, the older that I get, the stronger that I associate myself with being from South Korea. When I go to a store and I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Can I get, a 6-pack of PBR or whatever it is? But then when I go to the Asian store and I say something, and I'm like, annyeonghaseyo. They're like, annyeonghaseyo, Jimmy. I'm like, yeah, it's being Asian.
What about Charlotte?
I feel like Charlotte is gonna be a little more Korean than anything else, because with me being black and white, I don't feel like I feel like I have culture, but like with being black and white, I just feel like an American. Like I don't really have like certain foods or a language or anything like what he has. Like with Korean, he has his food and language and all that kind of stuff that he can teach Charlotte, and so I think that she'll get a lot more of the Asian
She probably will.
influence.
Even if I am mixed race, even if I am half white and half Korean, and Charlotte is 25% Korean or whatever it is, like she will always have like the full experience of being Korean.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Girl, you are so pretty. What are you?
What are you?
What are you? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, human? No.
I'm human. What are you? I'm human. Or I'm blank.
There you go.
So a lot of people answer that question very differently, but I would just guess that a extremely high percentage of biracial people have been asked that question in their lifetime.
I love it when people ask me. I love that. Or when people mistake what I am, they're like, oh, you know what? You look Filipino. You know, or the last one I got was like, you look like Bruno Mars.
You don't look like.
I know. Come on, just let me.
Humor me.
Oh, you look like Bruno Mars.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, I love it when people ask me that. It's awesome. Because I'm like, I want to tell them. I want to be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm from Korea. And they're like, oh, North or South? I'm like, I'm from South. They're like, oh, I'd love to go there. I got somebody that's been there. I love kimchi. I'm like, you know, just like invites conversation about your race. The best one that I've heard, it was awesome. I got this like 4 times. You know, like, what are you? I'm Korean. I could have swore you were Asian.
No.
A lot. And then they want to argue with me about it, you know, and I'm like, no. Like, I'm Korean and I'm Asian.
For some people, it allows them to have a better understanding of what's going on. For some people, it's just a curiosity thing. And for some people, it's just I just got to know. What are you going to do with the information? Nothing, but I just got to know. It's like, then I'm not going to tell you. So there's a variety of different reasons why they ask that question.
I don't really get offended, because most of the time when people ask, they're genuinely curious. They genuinely, like, do not know what you are.
We've got a biracial Bill of Rights. Biracial people should have the opportunity for self-definition. Biracial people should have the opportunity to resist oppression and the ability to only choose one group. All of these things are part of the identities of biracial people.
It doesn't really matter what you associate yourself with or how you see yourself. It's just, it's how you see yourself, and that's what matters. It doesn't really matter like what on paper or what it says that you are. It's what you feel about yourself, really.
Exactly.